Hello everybody, this is Albert with Green Tea House. I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to talk about how to deal with the fish smell that possibly comes from drinking dark teas. Now before we begin, I recommend you check out our back catalog of episodes, and I'll make sure I put some that are pertinent to this one, in particular all the episodes about pu'er tea. So if you're new to tea, there's 6 categories of tea. One of them are dark teas. The most famous of the dark teas would be pu'er. Pu'er is a fermented tea. In other words, it does have microbial activity going on in it, mostly in the form of fungus. And that's one of the reasons it has a distinctive taste. Pu'er is named for a city. There are other dark teas, but pu'er is really well known. And a lot of its fame came from after the Beijing Olympics. There was a lot of kind of fame that came from pu'er, and then there was this, a lot of pu'ers mostly sold in the form of discs. At least traditionally it was in discs, and so there was a lot of people were buying them in 2008, and then the market fell, and now pu'er is much more accessible to the typical person. But let's backtrack. So pu'er is one of the oldest forms of tea. Tea has been around. I'll make sure I put a banner on the history of tea here. Pu'er has been around since essentially the Bronze Age of making tea, so we're definitely before Christ. And back then, tea was mostly in the form of cakes, bricks, bird's nests, or tuochas, which we sell, and it was not loose leaf. Loose leaf tea, whether it be oolong or green or pu'er, all these really existed before black. Black was more of an innovation. Didn't really become the standard really until the 1600s in the Ming Dynasty. Oh, so pu'er's been around a long time. And pu'er is distinct from the other 5 categories, the other 6 categories of tea, in that it is fermented. It's the only one that has microbial activity going on it, true microbial activity. Yellow tea has its own non-enzymatic changes, whereas pu'er tea's changes are enzymatic. But the other thing is that it gets better with time. It is a tea that's similar to wine in that its taste, its bouquet, its liquor, everything gets better with time. All right, so let's talk about the fish smell. There is some belief that pu'er can smell fishy. Now understand there's 2 types of pu'er. There's raw pu'er and there's ripe pu'er. The majority of people who drink pu'er are going to be drinking the ripe pu'er. So raw pu'er is, as the name would suggest, freshly fermented pu'er. And there's 2 ways to go from raw pu'er, which tends to look greener, look more like a green tea, to the ripe pu'er, which tends to have that very coffee looking, like I'm drinking it right now because I drink pu'er every morning. And there's ways you can accelerate it. So since the 1970s, there's been a process that they mastered in China to accelerate getting raw pu'er to ripe pu'er. Normally it takes decades, but now they've figured out a way to accelerate it. So now most of the pu'er that people drink is going to be ripe pu'er. Now, ripe pu'er, even though it's been properly ripened, still is going to age. The taste is going to age, the look is going to age, whether it be in loose leaf, and we sell loose leaf pu'er, we sell ginger and just regular, or in the form of cakes, bricks, and tuochas, we sell tuochas. So the fish though, there's a couple of reasons why pu'er would have a fish smell. And I just, use air quotes on fish because some people will call it a fish smell. I think in general, pu'er tends to have like an earthy taste, a woody taste, kind of like for lack of a better word, like a compost taste. It has a very I'm in the middle of a rainforest, very just earthy. I think there's no better word to describe it. Earthy. It's very earthy. It's an acquired taste. I've had friends who are like, Albert, give me all 6 categories of tea. Give me a sample. I'm like, okay, of course, I'll give you a sample. And then so it's like 40% are like, pu'er is interesting. I might like it later. 60% like, I can't stand this stuff. And I tell them, okay, look, it's an acquired taste. You're not, you don't have to like it. We have an episode not that long ago about tea snobbery. You don't have to like every category of tea. So going back to this fish smell, there's a couple of reasons why it could smell very fishy. And again, we're only talking about ripe pu'er, not talking about raw pu'er, because most people aren't drinking raw pu'er. Ripe pu'er can be fish smelling for a couple of reasons. One, it just wasn't made well. It's not good quality pu'er. But we're going to take that off the shelf because most of the pu'er you find, including our pu'er, is good quality pu'er. So something that people misunderstand the first time they drink pu'er is that they don't expect it to taste the way it tastes. And yes, it can have somewhat of a fish smell. I wouldn't call it a fish smell. I've already kind of given other descriptions to it. But when it comes to pu'er, there's 2 things you really need to know. One, the longer you leave it out at room temperature, the less you're going to get that maybe not pleasant taste and aroma. In this case, we'll call it the fish smell. So if you buy our pu'er or any pu'er, don't necessarily drink it. Leave it out in room temperature. It doesn't need to be. We have an episode on how to properly store your tea. Pu'er is one of those where you can just leave out the leaves or the tuocha, and just leave them on a table. Just leave them out. It gets better as it oxidizes, as it's exposed to the air. So whenever you buy pu'er, you can just leave it out in your room, in your office, in your pantry. Again, don't put it next to spices and all these things, but just leave it out. And then if you go back to it a year, that same tuocha, that bird's nest, it's going to taste better. And if you wait 10 years, it's going to taste even better. But a lot of people are like, why am I going to buy it now and wait 10 years? Totally understand. So what can you do now to enhance the better notes of pu'er when you're drinking it? Step one, rinse the leaves. We have an episode, should you rinse your leaves? For pu'er, I would say yes. So rinse your leaves, just pour some water over the leaves for, 10 seconds. Just rinse them. The other thing I would do is when you're ready to brew, I would pour hot water in your kiyusu, in your mug, whatever you're going to use, and then leave it in there about 30 seconds. And then pour that out. So that first infusion will get out some of the fish smell. And then after that, do your first legit brew, whatever long you want to, 2.5 minutes if you want to do it, and then drink that, and it'll have the more subtle notes. And with pu'er, we put in the brewing instructions on the back of our packaging and on the website. We typically say you can steep two other times. The first drink for steeping 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, and then drink it 2 more times. Pu'er, and I would say also with the black teas, but certainly with pu'er, you can really steep pu'er. Let's say you're doing 2 minutes to 2.5 minute intervals of steeping. You can steep pu'er a good 4 times, if not more. And to the complete opposite side of the spectrum, if you look at Japanese green tea, there's a lot of people who steep high quality sencha or gyokuro 6-7 times. Now they might be doing for lighter steeping times, like maybe a minute, and they're doing it 6 or 7 times. But you do it for different times because each time you drink tea, it's going to have a slightly different taste profile. The first one's going to have a taste profile. The fourth one's going to have a different one depending on what tea it is. And so it is good to do all the different steepings and to have a session, as we call it. One session is the amount of times, no matter how many times you want to steep your leaves, that you do in a given window. So in closing, with pu'er, I love pu'er. It's the only tea I drink every day. And I'm saying if you like pu'er or you feel like you're gravitated toward pu'er, rinse the leaves, throw out the first steep after 30 seconds, and then enjoy. And I would tell you, just for cosmetic reasons, the tuocha. Get some tuocha. Tuocha is just beautiful. Just looking at them, touching them, smelling, just the bird's nest, or buy some cakes or bricks. All right, guys, post in the comments. I'd like to hear from you. Until next time, take care and God bless.